to Coastside Poetry. Thanks to those of you who've Zoomed in and those who are watching on YouTube. We meet either physically or virtually on the second Tuesday of every month to celebrate spoken word poetry. I'm Diane Moomey, and Steve Long and I will be your hosts this evening. Our event is being recorded and streamed live onto YouTube as we speak. So anyone can look at it later. We'll be posting the link on our website, coastsidepoetry.org. This evening, we welcome Oakland poet Safia Elhillo. Safia is the author of The January Children by the University of Nebraska Press, which received the Sillerman First Book Prize for African Poets and an Arab American Book Award, Girls That Never Die by One World Random House, plus a novel in verse, Home Is Not a Country, also by Random House. A co-editor of the anthology Halal If You Hear Me by Haymarket Books, Elhillo was listed in Forbes Africa's 2018 30 Under 30. She received a 2018 Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Fellowship from the Poetry Foundation and is currently a Wallace Stegner Fellow at Stanford University. Safia is Sudanese by way of Washington, D.C. and lives in Oakland. Please join me in welcoming Safia Elhillo.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And it's great to be able to gather like this. And hopefully someday soon it'll be in person. So I am going to start with some older poems. And then I am like most surprised of all that I have managed to write anything while quarantining. So I'll close with some newer poems. So this first poem is called How to Say, and it's after Aga Shahid Ali. In the divorce, I separate to two piles: books, English, love songs, Arabic. My angers, my schooling, my long repeating name: English, English, Arabic. I am someone's daughter, but I am American born. It shows in my short memory, my ahistoric glamour, my clumsy tongue when I forget the word for in Arabic. I sleep, unbroken dark hours on airplanes home, and dream I've missed my connecting flight. I dream a new and fluent mouth full of gauzy swaths of Arabic. I dream my alternate selves, each with a face borrowed from photographs of the girl who became my grandmother, brows and body rounded and cursive like Arabic, but awake to the usual borderlands. I crowd shining slivers of English to my mouth: iris, crocus, inlet, heron. How dare I love a word without knowing it in Arabic? And what even is translation, is immigration, without irony. Safia means pure. All my life it's been true, even in my clouded Arabic. This next poem is called Modern Sudanese Poetry. My husband works his fingers into the knot muscled against my spine, and my dead stay dead. My hair a knotted cursive language, my ligature, my grief barely literate, my amulets knotted around my neck and wrists. Sorry, I live right by an Amtrak station, so let me go back a few lines. My hair a knotted cursive language, my ligature, my grief barely literate, my amulets knotted around my neck and wrists, my language, cursive and silent, glottal and knotted and scarring the cheeks of my dead, adorning the hair of my dead, tallow in their braided hair. I read the books in translation. Where is the poem? Encircle every word I know. Acacia, lupin, sandalwood, and ash. They ululate, my dead. They squat like brides over clay pots of smoke, a yoke suspended in each open eye. And some in truth are not dead, my dead, and I am who is lost, who is not counted among the living. The poem is not owed me. I was wed in all the colors of my dead, the reddening, the borrowed gold. I wrote the poem in translation. I wrote the poem in the loophole. I wrote the poem in cursive. I snarled it. I picked apart the threads and wove a shroud. I was wed in it. I unfastened. I broke my fast with apricots, furred like the ears of my dead. I looked laterally for ancestors. I descended left and right. I read the book in Arabic, knew each letter and its sound, and did not recognize the words for tallow, for ululate, my dead, my languages, my ligatures, smoke in my loosened hair. So this is one of the newer poems. I've been watching The Sopranos for the first time. I kind of missed that bus the first time around. And I'm only just on season 3, but it's bringing up a lot of feelings for me. So this poem is a first draft called Tony Soprano's Tender Machismo. I know him. 3 buttons undone down the baobab chest. Quiet humility of the wisping hairline. I watch him cup a face in his great paw to kiss a cheek. Exact manners of my first beloved men. Sturdy and broken-hearted as cattle. My uncles. Watches matting the thick hair of their left arms. Brother-aged and fathering into my empty spaces. My father was gone, and into that great room they poured. Big-shouldered boys. Hot streak of anger at each center. Gnawed like chicken bones by the world and spit, their pride wedged between each gap tooth. Gifts shining and breakable in their broad and calloused hands. Fairy science of the music box. Tiny chime of each earring. Bracelets narrow and silver as their silent, injured wives. I was a child wealthy in shoulders to climb. Swung from arm to heavy arm. Tender booming of my name in that chorus of approving mouths. And at the close of my childhood, the colors deepening, vulgar. I learn and hate the word sad. I learn and hate the word sad clown. I am their smart girl and they are proud. Voices thinning across the telephone. The chemicals that claim them, cluster of murky cells, dark liquid in the heavy glass bottle, smoke, the darker compounds we do not name. On the television, I watch him, my uncle who is not mine, 13 years after the show stops airing, and I love him like the child forgetting her abdicated father. I love him like the stack of report cards I saved to show off, bills peeled from a roll in the pocket of belted trousers. I love him like the way I pretended not to hear how they talk about women, about bitches and gold diggers, the news stories with hurt girls naming their injuries, consensus that they are lying, that they must have been asking for it. Smoking on the veranda, their every tender misogyny, their every men are from Mars and every treatise on short skirts. I am home from college and stepping into their amber smells of cologne and old sweat, their wounded animal smell, quick kiss on the crown of my head. And now their girlfriends are my age, now younger. And the news about R. Kelly, and when one changes the channel and mutters about a setup, I flood that room of piecemeal fathers where I've kept them installed for years. Its debris includes the stories I kept away, everything that was done to me that I could not tell them, even when I needed their protection the most. Includes every name tossed about to mean women, how the whole time we thought that they didn't mean me. And then this next one, I was doing with a friend of mine a 30 poems in 30 days, but 31 for the month of August. So that last poem was from that, and this next one as well, but this one doesn't have a title. Though to a child of fleeing people, my husband has never held his name and body at arm's length at an airport. We looked at maps, taking turns with the middle seat, summered in old cities, held hands at the airport. In that famous city of romance, we folded in with the other immigrants, spiced food and blue smoke, shisha a perfume in the air. Portmanteau as a game we played in transit, the mischief found in Christopher. I left loving that old city, even when I was searched at the airport. When we were first married, he would dream of all the places we might live. Security arriving again after I'd boarded to remove me from the airplane for a third search, my clothes scattered around the jet bridge, shame swelling in my throat. It's a joke by now, the Muslim at the airport. All the places we might live, healthcare and a metro, Do we speak the language? Cost of renting an apartment, its proximity to an airport. Twice, already pregnant, my mother on a long ago flight, turbulence and nausea in return for passports for her children, our ease in every airport, while she stayed behind to be searched, headscarf and the wrong papers. My brother and I, American and killing time, eating fast food at the airport. After that election, after each new video where we die, we consider our ancestral work of leaving, bored of destinations like a menu at the airport. He has his heart set on it, that city, my husband. It's long afternoon, sunset 2 hours before midnight, and I can't. It was one time, but still, the airport. They hate Muslims in that country, I eventually say. My exalted passport, just paper, ugly shade of blue, and everywhere in the world. The airport, the place where it is most plainly said, but not the only. So where is there for us to go, for me and mine? Name I cannot help and cannot hide what it reports. And now it feels so far away, that place, that portal. I surprised myself by longing. The world, everyone, everything I love, kept from me on the other side of an airport. Um, And this next poem is after a poem by David Ignatal, and it's called From My Friends in Reply to a Question. I'm okay, and of course I'm not, but I go through the motions. I wake up to the alarm's howl, even when the word in my body is no. I dress in livid colors. I blacken the hairs of each eyebrow. I bake and braise and pickle. I write and read and lose hours to the blur of the television. I sit for hours in the bath, my skin puckering. I don't know if I'll ever go home again. I don't know who I've seen for the last time. The Arabic comes back to me in streaks of paint, verb forms and vocabularies I may never again have occasion to use. My days smudge into one another, and it's not that I am afraid. It's as if I am watching it all happen below, and I am somewhere above the room, wondering if the rice is burning. I am somewhere above the room, watching my new aches, watching the news as if I am reading it in a novel. I look up the names of people I knew in childhood, learn their new and angular faces, their faraway lives. My grandfather pixelates into a smile, and I work my creaking muscles to replicate it. I do not ask if we will ever meet again. I do not ask him to read to me or for anything that will make me long. I dull it with sugar and oil, with cooking shows, with sleep. I sleep 12 hours each night, and in my dreams, I am fleeing a war. In my dreams, I am touching the faces of my friends. We are each one of us touching, and even in the dream, we are afraid. Um, and then this is another of the 3030 poems. And it is after a poem by Kim Adonisio, and it's for now called Day 175, 2020. Late August, what I've always understood to be deep summer, crisp again in the aftermath of the heat wave. The fire is still burning distant redwoods, though I am once again wearing socks and a sweatshirt to sleep. On the other coast, my first friend sleeps on rose petals, new ring loose on her finger, to be resized in the morning, and next year a wedding at the foot of the Mediterranean. Facing now another ocean, I pull a blanket across my knees and try to remember the particular scents of all my loved ones. My grandmother in Chanel No. 5 and hair warmed through to release its curl. Smell of my own hair burning for years of school photographs. Dark sheet of it arranged around my shoulders. Puffed sleeves and white collar of the uniforms at the British school, where I spent most days silent, in awe of the Egyptian girls and their glamour. My hair braided most days into a single thick sausage, its outward curve against my sweating neck. I am nearly certain we will never I am nearly certain we will never again meet. Those days of chicken hearts by the club pool with the classmate whose mother was a known actress, our earliest and last. I think often these days of Egypt, where the sun's descent with it took the day's heat, the day's sweat cooling and raising the hair on my arms. Those girls, the children of the rich, who I spent my earliest years orbiting, returning home to describe to my grandmother the texture of their carpets and plates. Forbidden from returning to Noura's house after she was given first a dish to eat, chicken scallop and French fries thick as my uncle's fingers, and when she was finished, I was offered her leftovers. I wonder if she's still alive, if she too is afraid. night swallowing its handful of degrees in Celsius, remembering an earlier self and the other characters in the story. If she remembers me as one of them, if she as well is wondering if I am one of the ambient names eaten by this virus that reminds us of the faces of the forgotten too late. I don't know why I remember her tonight and all those girls, sleekness of their uniforms, something always not quite right about my own. The one day a year for which I'd burn for hours beneath the dryer, hurt pink of my scalp, to arrive with shining curtains of hair for the photograph. In my new isolation, my braid grows to new lengths it hasn't seen since childhood. My skin clears and I tilt my face into the steam of cardamom floating from the clay cup. Tomorrow I will lose them all again. Those girls, those years, my childhood of uniforms and expatriation before the permanence of the immigrant. I have forgotten them already, even tonight, my memories offering no faces, no scent. I know only the sense of my new life, distant smoke gnawing at an ancient tree, cut apples in the morning. I do not want any of what I've lost. I want only what I have now, to keep it, to wake up tomorrow to all my people still alive. Um, this poem is called Ode to My Homegirls, and it's after Matthew Olsman. Ode to My Homegirls. Smelling of orange rind, of cardamom, most beautiful girls in the world. Wake up, bitch, we're getting waffles. You can keep crying, but you're going out. My marriages, my alibis, my bright and hardy stalks of protea, and all I know of love I learned at 13, dialing Basma's home phone by heart to three-way call whatever boy, so that weeks later when the phone bill came, only Basma's familiar number beside the timestamp, clearing my name. Basma herself staying awake for hours to hang up the phone after. You who send pictures of your rashes to the group text and long voice notes from the bathtub, your laughter echoing against the tiles. You who scatter the world's map, piling into cheap buses and budget airlines. 4 of us asleep in my dorm bed, 6 of us overflowing my studio apartment. False lashes for weeks after like commas in my every pillowcase. You clog my toilet and admit it. You text me screenshots from the Gucci fashion show, getting rich so I can get you this. And when I lived alone and that man followed me one night home from the 6th train, up Lexington and into the hallway, tried for hours to break open my front door. You took turns from all your cities and stayed overnight with me on the phone for 3 days, snoring and murmuring in your sleep. And then this last poem, I mostly these days I'm just like writing poems about people I miss. So this last poem is called Ode to Sudanese Americans. Basma and Rudy were first, each holding a mirror in her arms, where I could see my face as their faces. And we pierced our noses and wore gamarboba in our ears, and everyone at the party thought them hoop earrings. And in the New York years, I crowd smoky bars alongside Ladin and Shadin and Majid and Linda and Nidal, Athil and Amir and Al Khair, and Mo and Muhammad and Mo. And we are forever removing our shoes in each other's apartments, ashing cigarettes into the incense burner, making tea with the good dried mint our mothers taught us to keep in the freezer, next to the chili powder from home, making songs and dinner and jokes in our parents' accents. And I am funniest when I have 2 languages to cocktail, when I can say, remember, and everyone was there. The rented room at the middle school on Sundays, where our parents volunteered to teach us Arabic, to watch us bleat alif, ba, da, tha, and text our American boyfriends that we were bored. And at restaurants, everyone asks if we are related, and we say yes. We do not date because we are probably cousins. We throw rent parties and project the video where Al Balabil sing Gitar al-Shog, and I am not the only one crying, not the only one made and remade by longing. The mutation that Arabic makes of my English, metallic noises the English makes in my Arabic. We ululate at each other's weddings, we ululate at the club, and Sarah and Hanat make the mulah vegan. And in English, Safia spells her name like mine, but pronounces it like purified, sews a patch of garmasis to the back of my denim jacket. We wash our underwear in the sink and make group texts on WhatsApp. We go home and take pictures of the pyramids. We go home and take pictures of the Nile. We move to other cities and feel doubly diasporic. And your cousin's coworker's little sister emails me a list of bigalas in Oakland, brings me crates of canned fava beans from her own parents' basement. And I say Sudanese American and mean also British Sudanese. and Canadian and Australian and raised in the Gulf, Azza and Yusra and Amani and Yasmin. And it's true that my people are everywhere. The uncles driving taxis at the end of our nights, the pharmacist who fills my prescription, who is named for the mole denoting beauty adorning her left cheek, guardian spirits of my every hookah bar, of my every untagged photograph, of crop tops and short shorts and pierced cartilage and tattoos, of henna and headscarves and undercuts and shaved heads, my tapestries, embroidered with hundreds of little mirrors, glinting like sequins in the changing light. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Safia. Every poem was like a window. And as you read it, fresh air came in. Just wonderful. I'd like to take a few minutes for anyone who would like to unmute themselves and give give feedback, because it can be hard to read a whole feature and not hear any voices afterwards. So, you know.
I thank you so much, Safia. Your poems were like a window open wide into your world. They were so accessible, and my mind is harder kind of blown open. So thank you for that.
Hey, Safia, absolutely enjoyed your reading. And each of your poems I felt is fleshed out so richly. I just wanted to ask you, how do you think about adding so many finer details and naming things and putting such detail in each of your piece?
Thank you. I think maybe my answer is changing because these days I'm still trying to figure it out, but I want very badly to write a poem that feels like a movie. But I don't like intuitively yet know how that kind of poem is made. So I'm like studying the poems of other people, and like sometimes I'll like borrow a skeleton and fill it in with my own memories and stuff. And that's been helpful. But I don't know. I mean, I think maybe the way I remember things feels a little bit more like a photo album than it does like narratively. I have a very hard time remembering like stories of stuff that happened, but I remember exactly what my like first grade school uniform looked like. So it helps me to kind of put those photographs into the poem and feel and kind of release myself from remembering exactly what happened if all I can remember is like what it looked like.
Thank you.
Safia, I also enjoyed your reading very, very much. I was curious, in the soprano-inspired poem, I admire how you blended a appreciation for the craft of the creation of those characters and the performance of the characters, but you blended that with your own experience and critique. And I'm curious to know, did that take several drafts and different approaches, or was that something you came upon almost immediately?
So the poem, I don't know that it's finished yet. The draft I read today is like a second and a half draft. So far, the skeleton is pretty much the same as how it came out the first time, but it was very slow going, like making the poem. I think sometimes I'll have a first draft kind of just like vomit out, and then I'll try and fix it once it's out. This one, because I had an idea of what I wanted it to be like, but I was like kind of like struggling my way towards the version of the poem that I felt existed in my head. This draft feels like a step closer to the way that I imagine it, but it doesn't quite yet accomplish the thing I'm trying to get it to accomplish. But I love The Sopranos. I'm having such a great time so far. it's like supposed to be a world I don't know anything about, but I'm watching the show and it's just like a story about like a diasporic community, and like a pretty like insular diasporic community. And I grew up in a similar, though not Italian, diasporic community. And I like grew up with those uncles, and I grew up like loving and being infuriated by them, like in the exact same feeling. And I was so surprised to find that mirror there of all places, you know? And so I wanted to make something to kind of like make a record of this like strange, unexpected feeling of being seen. But it's still in progress. But yeah, Tony Soprano, like he feels like my uncle.
You know, this is Meryl. I just wanted to say I love that you are using skeletons from other people. I don't think, you know, painters learn to paint by copying the masters, and I don't think we do that enough as poets. So I think that's a really great practice, and I applaud it.
Thank you. I've always been so compelled about that fact about painters, about how painters learn to paint, and it's been really helpful. I don't know. I'm so bored right now with the kinds of poems that I already feel like I know how to write. And I know, again, I like know what kind of poem I'm interested in making next, but I don't yet know how to just like sit down all alone and be like, this is how that poem is made. But it helps to read a poem. Like the other day I was reading a book by Jenny Shih, and it's a really beautiful book called Eye Level. And there's a poem in there, I don't remember, it's called Corfu. And as an exercise, this is also when I was doing the 30-30 and I just needed like a way to get a poem out every day. But it helped to just go through that poem line by line and boil it down to what I thought it was doing. So it was like line 1, a statement about the speaker's emotional state. Line 2, description of the world outside. Line 3, the weather. Line 4, the time of year, stuff like that. And then to just go back into that like worksheet of prompts based on this poem and fill it in with my own like memories and ideas and observations. And it was really helpful because then it was a way to access a memory that I had also wanted to be writing about. Her poem is, and there's like a whole series in that book of just the speaker as a traveler. And there is a poem that I had been trying to write about traveling with a group of friends to Greece, and that particular tension of being like, wow, this place is so beautiful. Also, everyone's so racist. And just like rubbing up against that without like feeling like I had to sit down and like write a manifesto. I just wanted to write like a little poem. And that skeleton was really, really helpful to me. And then, you know, I feel like the etiquette afterwards is to just be like, poem after Jenny Shih, because I also, you know, I like want to thank my teachers who maybe don't even know that they've taught me anything, but to like make a record of the fact that like I read this poem and it taught me something, and here is like what I have to show for the lesson that it taught me.
Okay, well, thank you again so much. I'd like to start our open mic, and if you're able to stay with us, Safia, for the rest of the evening and close us out with another poem of your own at the end, that would be lovely. I emailed you earlier today, and I don't know if you got it, but I've seen this done at other poetry events where the feature kind of gives us one for the road at the end. So if you're good with that, that would be wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So I just reposted the reading list, and our first reader for this evening is Kathleen McClung.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Safia. That was an absolutely beautiful reading, absolutely gorgeous. I'm delighted. My new chapbook from Rattle just arrived in the mail a few days ago, and I'm going to read the first poem. My book is called A Juror Must Fold In on Herself, and the first poem of the chapbook is titled Field Notes, Hall of Justice Parking Lot. Already nearly full with early birds, the parking lot on Bryant comforts me. Bland rituals, square stub on my dashboard, new numerals each day, gruff employee beckoning almost imperceptibly to the first available space. And yes, every morning I glimpse the defendant in his tie, arriving on his bike across the street, locking it with a gigantic U to the Hall of Justice rack, the only bike. He may know I watch him, linger in my reliable car, CD of Mozart etudes spinning, spinning. No contact is permitted, no words or gestures or notes on yellow sheets ripped from legal pads. I keep all of my questions to myself. I am no renegade juror, will not be smashing the system this summer. The judge explained contempt of court to us. It sounded ominous. I was already spending my vacation in a crummy swivel chair. Why prolong the ordeal, committing the extreme offense of asking a cyclist, how are you holding up? Have you found a zone of peace? I watch him instead, Mozart wailing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Yes, my copy of that arrived the other day, and I just sat down and read the whole first half of it right away. And it's an amazing, it's deep, it's, I don't know, you gotta read it. So our next reader this evening is someone new to our group, and welcome so much, Meryl Natchez, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. Okay, great. Welcome.
Unfortunately, Tuesday nights, I have the second Tuesday of the month, I have the Marin Poetry Center board meeting at 7. And I feel really bad that I won't be able to stay for the whole time. I feel like, but well, it is what it is. And I'm glad to be here. And this is my new book, Catwalk, from Longship. And I'm going to read 2 haiku from it and 1 short poem. So the 2 haiku, metaphor. The earth as a drop-dead gorgeous woman with bad taste in men. And this next one, I don't know if any of you are gardeners, but if you ever plant zucchini when you're first a gardener, you just wind up with an incredible number of zucchini. And one year I just wrote this very going poem called Zucchini Ode. And I read it to my husband and he was looking very glum afterwards. And I said, what's the matter? And he said, oh, I thought you said bikini ode. And so then I wrote this little haiku, which is the bikini ode. How artfully it draws the eye to just those parts it's meant to hide. And then going along with Safia, I read Jericho Brown's essay on complex, which I just fell in love with that form because it involves cutting up old poems into 9 and 11 lines. And if you have a lot of old poems that have never quite made it, it's a real thrill to be able to do that. And so I couldn't do it in quite as rigorous a form as he did. So I call mine loose plex. And this is one called Praise. Apparently nothing happened in April. More like lichen, the way it fastens on stone. How time stretches, how light bends, how trout go for the glitter of the hand-tied fly, a shaft of light falling on the page. Quiet joy seeps in with wakefulness, the ficus greens by the air conditioner, the incessant cars on 880, gravity, force that threw the green fuse, anther and filament, tiny winged seeds, throw in the towel, pick up the trowel. Death too can dazzle, a brilliant flame, and then finish the job and turn into gossamer. Exit this life into ashes and pure air.
Oh.
Thank you.
Meryl, would you mind reading that first one again? There's something happening. It might be just my computer, but there's a lot of latency happening, and I missed almost all of the first haiku you
Oh,
read.
the metaphor? I can just recite that one.
Yes.
The earth as a drop-dead gorgeous woman with bad taste in men. Thank you all so much. It's such a
Thank
delight
you.
to be
So
with you.
glad you could join us. And don't worry about having to go, because several folks have 7 o'clock meetings. So I've just put them early in the list, and we'll enjoy them while we have them.
Well, thanks so much
So-
for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So our next reader is also new to us, Robert Rubino. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, you are.
So we would love to hear what you have. I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you. It's called Trumpassic Park. Of course, you didn't know Trump when you both grew up simultaneously in Queens. His queens of money and maids and aggressive tyrannies, supremacy assumed. Your queens, a cockroach-infested 3-room apartment for family of 5. But looking back now, you knew dime a dozen Trump types. Cold-blooded, predatory, attention-grabbing bullies wreaking havoc. They were as familiar as neighborhood signs indicating fallout shelters. Of course, now in 2020, you cower at the memories of those bullies and their Trumptillian assaults. You wonder about your role in them. Were you an unwitting enabler? A bully magnet? Does the number of times various bullies preyed upon you say more about you than them? Something unflattering? Something shameful? Does it say it's who you are that's, well, wrong? And so, who are you? What are you? When there were no witnesses, hell, even when there were lots, it was easy to pretend the bullying never happened. It was a gift, this ability to compartmentalize, move on, grow up. Either a gift or a magic trick or delusion. After each victimization, you were certain it would be crazy to do anything but pretend the bullying ever happened. Of course, you didn't know Trump when you and he grew up in Queens, but you knew dime a dozen Trump types. You knew them all too well. And after straitjacketed in silence for decades, those memories of humiliation, emasculation, only in these past 4 years have they squirmed loose, hissing like infernal serpents. Maybe that's coincidence. Maybe not. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I hope you'll come back and join us again. Our next poet is Joe Cottonwood.
Okay.
Welcome. Joe's
thank you.
going to be featuring for us next month.
Okay.
You knew that, didn't you? I told you that, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about it. Well, I got a poem I just wrote yesterday, so it's kind of raw and steaming. And I have to make sure people know what a Tony Llama is. It's a kind of cowboy boot, very well made cowboy boot. It's made in El Paso. Okay, this poem is called Tony Llamas. I buy a dump of a house in a jewel of a city, Frisco. It comes with a tenant named Tito, who asks if he can stay a few days if he works. Tito spreads plastic sheets on the steep roof as a storm blows in from the Pacific. He's agile, a daredevil, 30 feet above the sidewalk, in blasts of wind and splats of rain as the sky turns black. Tito says this is easier than some sailboats he's crewed. Says he's the restless type. Has a kid in Maine with a woman, he says, who started out gorgeous. I don't do good with kids, he says. A few beers into the evening, Tito tells me about 2 weeks partying in Tahiti. Says, good action there. I ask what he means by action. Women. Tito shakes his head. Ain't that stupid? Next morning, he departs for Maine, hitchhiking. She's still sort of gorgeous, he says. Traveling light, he leaves a pair of Tony Lama boots, a gift with a long story behind them he isn't going to tell. And they're a bit tight on me, but okay without socks. I wear them to square dances, my odd passion, until I have kids, my better passion. My grandchild wants to explore the attic, finds those Tony Lamas, dusty, but fine. Too big for his little legs, but he clomps down the porch, steps into the yard where a giant rattlesnake strikes. Grandson screams and literally jumps out of his boots. The rattler can't extract fangs from the leather toe and thrashes away into some bushes, dragging the boot. Grandson, unbitten. But if anybody finds a single Tony Lama in the woods out there, maybe with a rattlesnake skeleton attached, would you bring it back? Long story. And hey, Tito, thanks. You did good. That's it.
Thanks. That was great.
I never know how those are going to come out, but glad it worked.
You did good. Let's see. Reiner Newman. It's another new poet to our Zoom, though not new to our Cafe Society group.
True.
Make it.
I
will mute myself.
All right, I'm on. You can hear me?
Yep, you are on and you have your 3 minutes in the sun.
Well, look at this. I'm going to do this very quickly, but the book is out. My book on prose poems and pastels. So it's called Intersections of Concern, and I was going to read one from here, but then I saw the sun this morning in bright red in the midst of that smoke, and I couldn't help but have to write something else, and this is it. The forests are burning. Our stories told in shadows around a campfire, almost carefully bordered, once carefully bordered in stones, the kindling, the match, the flame, to watch in wonder, the sudden burst and crackle, the warmth felt in yellow and white flames, a primal connection, ever changing into ashes, the heat stoned, stored, and the realization of hell in the midst of that glow. From warmth to destruction, a moment of our neglect, the sparks of 1,000 lightning bolts, forgotten dangers, forgotten reprimands, from Zeus chaining Prometheus to a rock with a vulture feeding on his disobedience, from Yahweh banishing the upstarts out of a garden, out of nature once cherished, to have hubris and exploitation begin, from Shiva the destroyer to so understood, and yet to recreate the earth again. The forests are burning, 100 fires and more, near the home that we've settled, the one of our memories, our history, our waking, our prayers, our stories told at the table in laughter and joy, the bedtime tears of our children when our hearts became one. The valleys are burning 100 fires or more near the home that we built out of savings and plans, our nooks, our tiles, our paint, our colors surrounding the spaces we danced in. The hills, they are burning 100 fires or more near the home that we filled with acts of affection, our photos, our books, our music, our stories told in the songs we learned and sang. The trees are now burning, a few that we planted for the shade that they gave us from the warmth of the sun, our gatherings, our friends, our time of communing with wine and grilled salmon, the growing aging of our family as our time became theirs. Our house is now burning, although we've left it in time, the home that grew with us out of our work and giving. Our children were born there. Our touch, our warmth to offer a place, a room, a future, the bedtime memory of our children in the years to come. That's it. Thank you, Diane.
It's been a rough time.
I feel it. I felt it. I put myself in the position of what it might have felt like to have lost a home.
You did that very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's see, Dan Brady's not here. So our next reader is David Krause. David, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Let me just pull this up. So, we're talking about giving people credit. Both of these poems I wrote sort of after and in part thinking of Bobby Miley's A Bird is a Metaphor poem that I believe he read a while back. This first one might sound familiar. The first stanza was something I read standalone the first time, but it's become a whole poem. So it's called Willful Suspension. Bones of birds, like words, are hollow, because to fill them would clip their wings. And songs of birds, like herds, they follow, because acceptance is a game of likeness. You see, birds of a feather fear the weather, when it brings in foreign flocks, so like a door or like a bow, they use their voice to knock. Voices are like choices then, two options culled to one. And listening narrows the glistening marrows of flightless folks like us. We can catch the breeze and forget our knees as long as glass wings last, because bones of birds begird the gap that allows for flight until they snap. So that's the first one, and then the second one is called, fittingly enough, The Metaphor of a Bird. The metaphor of a bird was perhaps best put to word by Hess, who said, "The bird fights its way out of the egg. The egg is the world. Who would be born must first destroy a world. The bird flies to God. That God's name is Abraxas. This little-known god spawned abracadabra, examined as magic, made praxis, made more, made language, fated maker of the word that would deign to spell a door open or a mouth shut. This earlier bird metaphor worms its way subconscious, germinates nascent notions, gives way like an estuary to the ocean, the sea itself the metaphor for infinity, its lack of finiteness, its divinity. So too in birds do we find keyholes to peep upon the unknown, an image of the ineffable to which we, like a pigeon's homing, hone in on inherently. For instance, a lark is a whim beyond explanation, a snipe hunt the tripe of frivolous fixation. Free as a bird, the kernel curd of our torment, the buoyant void inchoate in sleep, born in dreams, mourned in loss, forlorn like the albatross, around our necks, feckless, irrespective of prior flight, we lament time spent in dreaming defiance of gravity's unbending binding, pining to find a means of flying with nothing more than our will. Like a loon's lunacy, our awakening mind impugns our moonlit morning with wailing scorning, a fine-tuned croon that despoils fruitful musings, soils toils of our subconscious mind, which spoil in waking are left behind. Bereft, we fall from the swan's grace to our place terrestrially defined. And so twice the world we destroy is our own. Once, in daring to dream ourselves beyond the bars that press like scars against the skin from the inside out, to find the stars unmarred by the inescapable reminder of where we remain. And again, in waking to find the dream, like a dead bird on the sill of a closed window, victim to the silent violence of invisible barriers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Wow. Yes, absolute thumbs up. Let's see. Terry Adams, are you still with us? There you are. You
I am.
have a poem ready.
So, oh, Diane, you became muted. Hello? There you are.
Weird things are happening.
Yeah.
I did mute myself because I'd been making clicking noises, I think.
Oh,
But anyway, so if you're ready, I'm going to mute myself so you can read.
okay. Okay, this is called the Boulder. I keep reading what the others write and saying, this is not me. Though I feel we exchanged faces behind what we called the future at the time, the future nearer at hand then, shallower and clearer as a stream undisturbed recently of its muck, but leaving a few stones overturned by the recent footfalls of friends, still showing as yet unmossed faces to the sun. You get the feeling you are a particular configuration of a forest stream. So precisely never there that you are there only. And your mistake, pardon me, and your mistake is believing that just because you think something, you can explain it. Every once in a while, you need a place to put a foot down. The trees upended across you, flowers with all their painted names, the weather, sandbar willows dipping for handholds, the experience of a long valley, a sound everywhere you can find something to hit. Maybe the boulder partly submerged, 2 or 3 water lines shelved into it, smoothed to a hue of absolute need below, then a stripe of waxy brown where your plain face intrudes into air. Thank you.
Where your plain face intrudes into air. Love that. Thank you, Terry.
You're
Abby,
welcome.
Abby Kaplan, do you have something?
Hi. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
I'm going
you.
to mute myself.
All right. Well, I just got a literary magazine, Flights, and it has a poem of mine. So it just came today, so I thought I'd share it. It's about searching for inner peace, for healing. And in the 80s, I would go to a houseboat in Sausalito that was called Umphali. And there were a lot of healers there. So I saw one of the healers. And this boat had been owned by Alan Watts, who was the famous Buddhist teacher and author. Searching for Robin Williams. The epigraph. Do I perform sometimes in a manic style? Yes. Am I manic all the time? No. Do I get sad? Oh yeah. Does it hit me hard? Oh yeah. Robin Williams. In the dark, I climbed down the metal escape ladder I'd bought if the house caught fire and the staircase clogged with smoke, pulled by a tune I knew I'd heard before but couldn't think from where. The road was lit by twin halos of moon and streetlight as I headed down 19th Avenue, past closed gas stations, past Golden Gate Park's slumbering cypresses, and Clement Street's shuttered markets, to the bridge on-ramp, where I couldn't make out the crimson towers for all the fog swirling and cars whizzing by. But now I knew the tune, that voice. It was Phil Oakes singing. And I won't be running from the train when I'm gone, and I can't even suffer from the pain when I'm gone. Can't say who's to praise and who's to blame when I'm gone. I looked for Robin in the tunnel named for him, in the electric noise and headlights so blinding I couldn't see my own hand, escaping it for the silence of Marin County, where I stole past Sausalito's darkened tourist shops to the pier, where the boat Omphale once rested, a barnacle-encrusted home to the lost, whose hearts hurt, who rested in the way of Zen. I stared into the black bay water and saw those other times when I'd scan Haight Street, hoping to spot Robin behind his fake beard, trying to be, thinking we'd order breakfast at the People's Cafe, stay forever.
And stay forever. Oh. Thank you so much, Abby. Glad you could join us this evening. See, Ellen Woods could not be with us. So next we have Monica Corday. Monica, do you have a poem for us?
Hi, Dan. Yes, I do. Thank you so much for having me again, having all of us. I hope all of you are doing well. Here's what I'm offering tonight. It's called Not a Woman Poem. When you forage for poppies, remember how fragile they are. Carry a basket and a bucket of water. Take some newspapers to keep them safe, to protect them from wind and sun. Leave an opening for the scarlet heads and allow them to breathe fresh air. The green stems leave a lactiferous trail and crumbs of moist earth. To keep them alive longer, burn the ends. Put the petioles on fire. The flowers are meek survivors. They will not speak or protest. They will live another day and call it life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monica. That was lovely. Let's see, there's Joel Katz. Joel is next on the list. Welcome. Glad you could
Thank you.
join us.
Glad to be here. Can people hear me okay?
Yes, you're
Yes,
fine.
yes. Okay. So my poem tonight comes from a summer job experience that I had during college. And it's also useful to know that the city of Buffalo, New York has a large ethnically Polish population. Postal Summer, Buffalo, 1970. I delivered unblessed wafers to St. Jude's Center, graduation rings to proud parents, glass flasks and spiral tubing to pathology labs. Promptly at 6:45 each morning, as we sorted our routes, Spider Joe would toot a racetrack fanfare on his kazoo, then announce his daily picks. I delivered Playboys with the usual one-day delay, taking care not to leave my thumbprints on the centerfold. I carried my bulging leather bag past General Mills grain elevators and barges heaped with flour, past old Buffalo Bills football stadium with bits of trash blowing into the cracked wooden seats, past Roswell Park Cancer Institute and its loading dock of empty simian cages. It was the summer they reprimanded Brioni for delivering mail on side streets shirtless, deepening tan or no deepening tan. Rudy took me aside and said, "When you deliver to the top-notch tavern on Delavan, Josephine takes the mail. But be careful. Josephine is a slut." Lobbies of apartment buildings where I fed the 8 across mail chutes, dank smells of pea and boiled cabbage. Social Security and welfare checks arrived once a month on the same day. Everyone lined the route, waiting. Suddenly, I understood the psalmist's cry, "They compassed me about like bees." When the German shepherd sprang out from under the very low pickup truck and chomped on my leg, I just walked 3 blocks further down my route to the hospital. They washed the wound and I called my supervisor, told him there was only a slight delay. I'd be able to finish my route on time. "Why did you go to that hospital? The post office doesn't have a service agreement with that hospital." It was the summer I discovered that despite college, I knew absolutely nothing. It was the summer Koloskovich sauntered over to my sorting desk and said, "How do you get to Warsaw fast, kid? Go to Buffalo and take the shuttle bus." Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Quite a picture. Let's see. David Zeltzer, you're up next.
Thank you. Great to be here virtually with all of you. I'll read a couple of recent poems and then finish with one I wrote sometime last century. First one is, "What color is your heart?" I count hot footsteps toward my death, demolish this smooth asphalt where all the wheels confuse each other with smiling monkeys and bananas. These trees flower blue sunshine. This cricket on its back plays dead, wrapped tight in tissue in a plastic bottle. What a day for stomach acid pills. These rocks are so tired, the water streams effortlessly over their stony corpses. Morning cicadas drone. Sitars and hypersonic tablas drone. Masked death dances nimbly, colors good and bad, so demons know where to thrust not lust, but knife. No lover panting breathlessly masks death in sunshine breath, as lovers good and bad bloom in her flowering heart. Lubricious. I don't want to ride this wave of tiny mesmerized stars where the air is profane. So I walk inside the blood of angry children, crying to see a starry night, an ancient reptile whose bones we just found in some impossibly empty observatory. Or did I forget to drop to my knees and beg for something sweet and icy where people have no beds or money, but a few of them still sleep and dream old movies that make me forget I once fought children lewdly on a sidewalk marbled with tiny stars. And finally, we know this power. We know this power together. Simple things we trust and can imagine. Morning sunshine on your body. Touching anyone, this candle finely lovely. Your hip, your fluid lonely motion. Missing you, I think no loneliness this stunning time without you. Drink me through the night, back and forth in time. I open all the parts I know from touch. This is it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, David, very much. See, Elise could not be with us this evening. So, Sandra, there you are. Welcome.
Thank you, Diane. Okay. I'm going to read a couple of poems from my 2018 chapbook, Road Warrior. It's a book of road poems, and each one has an epigraph about the place it was based on. This first one is called Plunge, and it's Banana Shout Cottages, Ocho Rios, Jamaica. Long time ago. Huts of woven straw crown an ocean cliff. Each morning, Cleo, the fruit lady, wakes us with her song, orange juice, soursop juice. It filters through the gauzy curtains of my dreams. In the outdoor kitchen, we cobble together an Aki breakfast, stumble into swimsuits, take the short hike to the promontory. It takes me days to find the nerve to jump. I watch with envy as the others throw a kiss to island skies and drop like ninjas over the ledge. The fall is 15, maybe 20 feet. The more I ponder it, the more my feet are fused to stone. When I relent, the jackknife of my life careens. Heart, gut, and head plunge together from the edge. As I fall, I calmly bid my breath goodbye. The ocean welcomes me into its bed. Later that week, a Rastafarian teaches me the scuba dive ballet. We stand knee-deep in shallow water. Under the umbrella of his beneficence, I take a second plunge. Eating jerk chicken on the topless beach, I try to comprehend what I've just done and learn I've used less air than anyone. Such a foreign brand of letting go from the tumbling of love or lust. Toes lose their grip on the floorboards, body and senses tumbling toward the vortex or the light, whichever comes first. Thank you. And the second one is called I Hunger. I have never been to Spain. That was my plan for 2020. And I'm doing an awful lot of armchair travel and dreaming now. And this poem is an example of, it's a German term called Fernweh, which means a longing or homesickness for a place you've never been. It's called I Hunger. I hunger for Spain like a pungent paella, her rojos and saffrons, cobblestone walls, Madrids and Bilbaos, riot of sculpture, gaudy towers, even the bloodstains of Guernica. In dreams, I feel the scorch of the bull's breath, hear the matador's victory cry. I see my mother in shirtwaist and pumps, retelling the tale, When he hands her the bull's ear, the petals of her lips swell with flattery. Oh, to be a flatbed stowaway, absorbing pothole curses, hunkered, wrapped in arching plane tree robes, their fingers reaching across the avenidas like God giving life to Adam. Combing the beaches, I hunt your voice under the bright palapas, your smile bleeding into sand. I inhale the sizzle of garlic from your frying pan, giving you away to the breeze. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. I love the smell of that garlic. Thank you. Myrna Herschel is our next reader. Welcome, Myrna. You're muted. You're muted, so yes. So I'm going to mute mine. So now's good, yeah.
Okay. This is sort of in the vein of what Sandra was revisiting. These days, I find it really important to go back to some memories of pre-COVID joys and experiences, and this is one of them. Fado. The moon sailed a quarter of its heavenly route. In the taverns of cavernous Lisbon, past the late repast, the men and women sway to the plaintive sound of Fado. Someone belts out a song hoarse with longing for unshackled past, for the scattered lovers, and for all that is spilled and ever will be mourned. Another voice unwinds from the coils of smoke. Young or old, it matters not. It unleashes the soul and reaches to another until they ache together. Music spills on azulejos of the trembling streets. The lights flicker in sympathy, and the stray passerby pauses spellbound in the ruptured loneliness. Fado, fa, do, fate. The sailors drift at sea dreaming of lost loves, and the luminous moon dissolves in the starry tapestry. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Myrna. Yes. The starry tapestry. Love that. Bobby Miley, there you are. You have a poem for us?
I've got two short poems for you tonight.
That's good. So I'm going to mute me.
I ask myself, who are you? And my tongue thickens to clay. The answer misplaced some time ago. The road leading back to it forgotten. And the second. It's the end of an era, I whisper to myself as the microwave counts down 3, 2, 1. It beeps once and falls silent. I don't know what I expected, really. The start of a new era, I suppose. But I resign myself to finishing my meal, nourishment so I can survive another day, to move closer to a future that might not come.
Wow.
Oh, thanks, Bobby. Jane Koss, are you ready to read a poem for us? You're still muted. Yeah, you're still muted. Um, no, you're still muted, Jane. There you go. There you go.
Should I start again?
Yes, I think so. So I'm going to mute myself. Don't touch any buttons, just read.
Maybe I should get closer to the mic.
No, I think that you just had not pressed the right button, but now is fine. Yeah, it's
Okay.
really fine. So I'm going to.
Okay, this is the definition of the Peter Principle. We rise to the level of our incompetence. We are Homo sapiens, but how sapient are we? Wherein lies the wisdom? Certainly not on battlefields where corpses lie, not in the great Atlantic vortex filled with discarded dumpster detritus and the planet's primary pollutant, plastic. Certainly not in the Pacific, where waves of garbage wash ashore onto islands that are sinking with the rising sea. Not in capital cities where so-called wise men dwell. Not in the rainforest, not among the glaciers, nor on roads choking our throats with carbon. It is said by some that we started out on Mars before hitching rides on particles of cosmic dust. So if we could go back from where we came, maybe this planet can stand a chance. And I will end with something I call catharsis. It's a way of unwinding and not dwelling on stressful things that are going on. The karmic wheel turns and turns. There is no helm and there is no stern. Confront the devil eye to eye. Maybe your challenges away will fly. There is no beginning and there is no end. Maybe your enemy will become your friend. Life's not easy, so they say. Enter the fray or get out of the way.
Thank you, Jane. Phyllis Klein, there you are.
Yeah.
Would you like to read a poem?
Yeah. So I picked a really short one because it's the end of the evening. And this is like Myrna's, this one is nostalgic for the way things were. It's called The Woman at the Poetry Table on Market Street Writes for Me About Jewelry. And she asked me what I wanted her to write a poem. She was writing poems for people, so I asked her to write me a poem about jewelry. She says each gem carries a story. She's young, beautiful, shorn hair over open face, each word a gem, each gem a word. Her Olivetti portable, sound of horses, each letter the hammer of metal heft onto the paper. On the way home, echo of car tires on the guardrail when the windows are open, click of nails on the steering wheel in time with the music of turquoise of lapis. Sound of a gate or a door opening, stones tumbling, on the neck, the fingers, the earlobes, cut of the precious into facets, sound of a lucky memory as it rings.
Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis. I didn't put my name on the list, but I would like to read a poem anyway, and then we'll hear one more from Safia, and we'll all go home. So. Henna. The mylar cones arrive from India, the red and silver, green and gold, like silk of saris, wrapped and filled with new and ancient paste. My California kitchen, plastic tablecloth and paper towels will keep the stain where it belongs. Pink and white as I am, I'll take my place. A line of black-haired women eons long, ancestors not my own. Our toes are spread apart with cotton balls. Nails are trimmed and oiled. Skins are clean and blank as futures unforetold, ready for the greenish paste that turns my pallid nails the color of madrone, that paints the ancient wedding patterns on a bride-to-be somewhere across the dateline, each brown dot another turn of our wheel. Thank you. Okay. So, that's the end of our list. And Safia, can we hear one more wonderful one from you, please?
Sure. Thank you all so much for inviting me into the space to join you. So this poem, I feel like I write about my grandfather a lot because he's a poet. And so that she wouldn't feel left out, this is about my grandmother, and it's called The Matriarch. The Matriarch remembers us most by what we loved as children. Chicken purchased in buckets, crisped in its copper skin, melon sliced in cubes and piled into a bowl, tiny candies from the worn leather of her purse and hands. Left alone for hours, she watches television, hunger pooling in her upturned face. Daughter of a city named for the elephant's trunk, city like a muscle, its 1,000 invisible fibers, its cording of vein. I was not there, but I remember her 100 shining wedding spoons, ankles bare beneath her governed body, clouds at her hairline, wistful girl at a window, imagining a sports car the color of clotted cream, silk scarves for her hair, Cairo and Europe, silk dress whispering at the ankle, a future conjured from magazines and the gentle crackling of the radio. I was not there, but I remember her, elfin and unpainted in the earliest photographs, our face before it became mine, the hips before they became mine, spread west and east beneath the strained cotton of every skirt, air clotted with gardenias wilting in the heat. You creak at the knees in tanned bougainvillea, ache at the spine, at the root, black sesame and black cumin, coriander seed ground to heaps of powder. It is always summer when I know you, and the cucumbers on the counter are warm and soft, forgetting their hard snap, their consonants. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your detail is so rich. It's just amazing. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you again, Safia, for being with us. And that wraps up another evening of Coastside Poetry. We'll meet again on October 13th when Joe Cottonwood will feature for us, and we'll have another open mic as usual. So thank you all and good night.